The algorithm still thinks this channel is my scrapbook of 12-second nonsense. A graveyard of reels where I made antibiograms look like dance trends and mistook attention for understanding. Consider this the reset button. I am a med school graduate standing at the border between nostalgia and night duty, opening the gate to the loudest roommate in medicine. Pathology and microbiology, including parasitology. The study of what goes wrong, who did it, how it spread, and what we plan to do about it without crying into a coping journal at 2 in the morning with earphones welded to our skulls. Pathology is the gossip column of the body written by cells with receipts. Cell injury shows up first, like a blunt text. Reversible if you apologize early. Irreversible if you ghost mitochondria. Swelling, blebs, fatty change. Then the dramatic exit called necrosis. In flavors you learn to recognize the way you recognize hostile coffee. Coagulative when proteins freeze in denial. Liquefactive when enzymes throw a soup party. Caseous when the immune system tries to sculpt modern art. Fat necrosis when enzymes chew on lunch money. Fibrinoid when vessels cosplay as velvet ropes and let fibrin glitter everywhere. Meanwhile, apoptosis steps out with quiet dignity, because tidy exits exist even in chaos. Inflammation is the reality show. Ruba color cala dola functio lisa. Vessels dilate for drama. Permeability leaks for plot. Neutrophils arrive first like interns who sprint. Macrophages follow with context and cleanup. Cytokines tweet so much the hypothalamus runs a fever just to log off. Exudate versus transudate becomes a personality test. If it pours like soup and sticks to everything, it is exudate. If it slips through like a passive-aggressive roommate, it is transudate. Granulomas form when the immune system circles a problem and declares a meeting permanent. Epithelioid cells, giant cells, lymphocytes, a ring of persistence around a stubborn secret. Hemostasis is logistics. Platelets adhere, aggregate, activate, while coagulation cascades hum in 2 pathways that become one like an exam trick you expected to fail. Then, fibrinolysis arrives late, with scissors and a humble request to return blood to normal life. You memorize Virchow's triad and then see it everywhere. Stasis during a long bus ride. Endothelial injury from a catheter. Hypercoagulability from cancer, pregnancy, pills, or pure bad luck. Emboli travel like rumors. Arterial ones slam into end organs with zero chill. Venous ones slip into the lungs and turn an ordinary morning into a code. Shock is not fear. It is arithmetic you cannot ignore. Inadequate perfusion, cellular doom, organ sulk. Hypovolemic when volume leaves the chat. Cardiogenic when the pump writes an out of office. Distributive when vessels throw an unauthorized street festival. Stages march forward unless you reverse the math with fluids, pressors, and honesty. Wound healing is group therapy. Hemostasis, inflammation, proliferation, remodeling. Primary intention when edges kiss. Secondary when granulation scaffolds a slow cathedral. Tertiary when you bargain. Collagen cross-links like your plans after finals. Scar tissue remembers everything. Then the grand topic. Neoplasia. New growth with big opinions. Benign behaves. Malignant breaks the lease and steals the copper wiring. Hallmarks of cancer become the villain's resume. Self-sufficient growth signals. Insensitivity to anti-growth. Evasion of apoptosis. Limitless replication. Sustained angiogenesis. Invasion and metastasis as a hobby. During vivas, you recite them like poetry, while a cranky senior watches your sympathetic surge with anthropological interest. Molecular pathways stack like Jenga. Tumor suppressors lose their job. Proto-oncogenes reinvent themselves as influencers. DNA repair teams go on strike. Somewhere a millennial uncle at a family function declares that alkaline water cures it all. You smile the smile of a person who has read P53. Systemic pathology hands you organ dialects. In the heart, ischemia draws borders in muscle. In lungs, consolidation plays fog machine while ARDS storms the stage. In liver, steatosis shimmers until fibrosis draws lines that cirrhosis fills with regrets. In kidneys, glomeruli whisper or shout. Crescents sketch deadlines. Podcasts report what happened at the party. Endocrine glands gossip in hormones. Diabetes walks through vessels carving signatures. Thyroid swings from opera to lullaby. Bones remodel like impatient landlords. Skin narrates inflammation on a canvas everyone can see. Blood makes its own dramas. Anemias file different kinds of gloom. Leukemias flood the city with white noise. Lymphomas build gated communities, then forget the gates. And then microbiology crashes through the door like an unruly orchestra. Bacteria split into gram-positive and gram-negative the way people split into those who return library books and those who make the librarian's eyebrow rise to dangerous altitudes. Cocci cluster or chain. Rods choose aerobic or anaerobic lives. Spores sleep like buried secrets. Capsules glide past phagocytes like privilege. Toxins flex. Endotoxin throws fevers and vasodilation with no subtlety. Exotoxins specialize like consultants. Enterotoxins from the gut. Neurotoxins from the dark. Hemolysins from the messy middle. Antibiotics are weapons and responsibilities. Beta-lactams build walls that bacteria refuse to respect. Aminoglycosides jam ribosomes like a toddler with crayons. Macrolides smooth-talk the 50S. Fluoroquinolones kink DNA gyrase. Sulfonamides cut folate and watch synthesis stumble. Resistance writes its own soap opera. Efflux pumps installed. Porins closed. Target sites mutated. Beta-lactamases sharpened. You learn to read antibiograms like weather maps. Storms forming over ICU isolates. Clear skies in community clinics. You learn stewardship because a future you wants options. Virology enters with minimal baggage and maximal intent. DNA viruses edit the archive. RNA viruses improvise with error-prone fireworks. Enveloped ones demand gentle handling and compensation in the form of lipid fragility. Non-enveloped bring toughness you did not ask for. Replication cycles choreograph entry, uncoating, replication, assembly, release. Interferons ring alarms. Vaccines do quiet miracles by teaching immune memory to recognize strangers before panic installs. Somewhere on hostel nights, you argue over attenuated versus inactivated, while your coping journal records unrelated lyrics at the top of the page. Mycology is drama in slow motion. Yeasts bud like patient artisans. Molds spin hyphae and insist on architecture. Dimorphic fungi lead double lives depending on temperature, the way students lead double lives depending on exam season. KOH mounts reveal branching truths. Aspergillus forms acute angle hyphae like precise handwriting. Candida decorates mucosa when antibiotics clear the competition. Dermatophytes repurpose keratin like thrift artists. You learn to treat gently and long because fungi take their time and punish impatience. Parasitology is colonization studies told in awkward honesty. Protozoa move like they invented locomotion. Malaria synchronizes its celebration with fevers that mock your circadian pretensions. Amoeba reshapes intestines with a signature crater. Giardia makes every picnic a memory you did not ask to keep. Helminths declare tenancy. Ascaris migrates like an adventurous tourist. Hookworms siphons iron with elegance. Tapeworms live modular lives that make building inspectors cry. Eosinophils cheer from the sidelines whenever tissue is crossed. Vectors join the cast with wings and schedules. Sandflies, mosquitoes, tsetse, ticks. The world is a web of negotiations between blood and beings who see you as buffet. Diagnostics become rituals. Stains that reveal histories. Gram stains serve first impressions. Seal Nielsen hunts waxy rebels. India Ink outlines capsule whispers. KOH clears the stage for fungal silhouettes. Culture media host parties where species RSVP in colonies and colors. Blood culture bottles ask for patience and sterile technique. PCR amplifies whispers into testimony. ELISA quantifies gossip with standards on a curve. Rapid tests deliver certainty or confusion in minutes, and your heart does both. You learn to pair tests with pre-test probability, unless you enjoy misleading yourself with expensive noises. Infection control is civilization. Hand hygiene is non-negotiable. Gloves are not fashion. Masks are respect. Isolation is logistics, not punishment. The librarian becomes your unlikely ally. She runs the silent floor like an infection control nurse running a ward because discipline is oxygen for attention. Her glare reduces your cognitive dead space. Her rules increase your mean study pressure. You do not argue. You wash your hands and return the book. The lived curriculum runs parallel. Cranky seniors measure your pulse by how your voice trembles when you say granuloma. Cranky juniors discover sarcasm's half-life and overdose. You navigate both with boundaries instead of bravado. Family gatherings become unlicensed conferences. An aunt prescribes turmeric against all pathogens, and for a fleeting second, you consider explaining quorum sensing. You choose peace and a sentence about vaccines. On some nights, you hold a coping journal and write one line for each cry of the hostile cat, while a favorite album tries to drown your anxiety. You pretend the Bohr effect is a lullaby and breathe until your vagus admits defeat. Breakups and patch-ups do not respect schedules. Anatomy lab witnesses farewells between fascia. OPD postings host reunions beside blood pressure cuffs. The playground hears apologies shouted across badminton nets. Cadaver tables hold collaborative truces while someone identifies a nerve and someone else identifies the limits of pretending everything is fine. Medicine does not pause for romance, it audits it. The best relationships you will see are not on feeds in curated light, but in wards at odd hours when one person sits and holds another person's hand without filming themselves. Night shifts as a medical officer before degrees announce themselves teach humility in 4 beats. Fever chart rising and falling like puberty. Blood pressure dropping because volume left the party. Breath rate climbing because lungs are negotiating with capillaries. Consciousness wobbling like an imperfect algorithm. You watch labs refresh like constellations. You listen to oximeters sing. You give fluids and calculate doses on a napkin because the printer sleeps. You meet sepsis at the intersection of microbiology and pathology and realize protocols are love letters written by people who remember losing. Outside the hospital, fluorescent lights wait with time cards and power ladders. A manager asks you to do the lifting of 2 people with the spine of 1. You decline with the posture of intervertebral discs that have read the literature. Sometimes you win. Sometimes you go home with paraspinal muscle spasm and the bitter taste of hierarchy. Pathology calls this muscle injury. Microbiology calls the staff room a petri dish. Parasitology calls your paycheck a definitive host for stress. Study strategy for this subject becomes pattern recognition with compassion. In pathology, you learn to name the enemy without forgetting the person who houses it. In microbiology, you learn to name the culprit without ignoring the ecosystem that enabled it. In parasitology, you learn to trace life cycles while acknowledging life chances. MBBS and BHMS both need this map. Whether you reach for vancomycin or an individualized remedy later, you still need to know what process is roaring and what process is whispering. Case-taking improves when you can sort symptoms into inflammation, infection immunity, ischemia, neoplasm from habit, not heroism. Resources pile up. Glass slides, virtual slides, atlases that turn organs into testimonies, tables that turn organisms into suspects, flowcharts that turn chaos into choices. But the real resource is time applied regularly, not heroically. 20 questions a day. 1 page of notes that you rewrite without adjectives. A habit of asking what mechanism explains this fever, this rash, this cough, this shadow, this count. You learn to distrust certainty that arrives too quickly. You learn to distrust despair that arrives too easily. You learn to zoom in and zoom out until the picture stops lying. If this is the first proper video on a channel that once worshipped scroll speed, treat it as an oath. Here we will earn our metaphors. We will laugh because humor is antiseptic for fear, not a substitute for rigor. We will take microbes seriously without giving them our sanity. We will call cancer by its full name, then shorten it to a plan. We will memorize stains and steps and cycles and names, Then exhale and remember the human who is waiting for us to stop showing off and start helping. Pathology tells you what broke and how. Microbiology tells you who trespassed and why they will not leave without strategy. Parasitology reminds you the world is full of passengers you did not invite. Together they teach responsibility. Respect the donor who lets you learn. Respect the patient who lets you try. Respect yourself enough to rest before your neutrophils start making decisions for you. The algorithm can keep its 12 seconds. This subject takes the time it needs. Bring your tired eyes, your stubborn curiosity, your sanitizer, your pen, your quiet. We will build from first principles until the clinic feels less like a storm and more like weather you are trained to read. And when a cranky senior sighs or a manager demands or a friend performs perfection for a camera, you will remember what these disciplines taught you. Patterns over panic, evidence over noise, process over posturing. Then you will wash your hands, turn a page, and do the next right thing.